What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. We've got a big show for you here today. We've got Justin Boone. We've got the Week 12 preview, all the things you know and love from our weekly preview shows here on the Forecast. But before we get into that, as we always do, we've got to talk through Thursday Night Football. A little recap here. We've got Texans 23. We've got Bills 19. I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was super fun to watch. Two very fascinating teams in very interesting places in their season go back and forth here. And look, I know it's a fantasy show, and we'll get into the usual stuff that we do here, the usual song and dance, the offensive takeaways from both teams, what I think I learned watching this game. We'll get into all that. But we have to start this recap by saying, my God, what an outing. What a night for the Houston Texans defense. That was an obliteration that they gave Josh Allen and this Bills offensive line. 8 sacks, 12 quarterback hits, 11 tackles for loss. They were all over it. They sacked Josh Allen again 8 times tonight. And it's interesting because if you think about Josh Allen, he's had a little bit of a sack problem this year. And I think that the football world, the football universe, the smart football people out there have, I think, maybe even overcorrected a little bit in terms of are sacks a quarterback stat. Like all things, nothing is absolute. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. Sacks can mostly be a quarterback stat. They can sometimes be a quarterback stat. They can be primarily a quarterback stat. But I think saying 100% is a little foolish. But regardless, even behind an offensive line that has been elite the last couple of years in Buffalo, there has been a sack problem a little bit for Buffalo this season, and there was a huge problem tonight. Again, 8 sacks, loses 70 yards on sacks, does Josh Allen. And like I said, if you think back to Josh Allen's, not his early career in the NFL, but the few years where he really became, this version of Josh Allen, he had been one of the best sack avoiders in the entire NFL. And again, it's crept up a little bit this year, and there was a huge crescendo in that effect tonight. So Houston, again, doing this on the other side of a really strong offensive line and one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Just an unbelievably impressive showing here from the Houston Texans. And with this win, according to the New York Times playoff simulator here from The Athletic, like this win bumps them up to a 35% chance to make the postseason, does the Houston Texans. If they win next week, as Greg Allman is showing us, 57% chance to make the postseason. I don't know if the Texans are going to make the playoffs. Okay. I don't know. I don't totally buy into some of the teams that are currently slated to make the playoffs in the AFC. I mean, the Bills, obviously, they have showed us some fatal flaws, I think, in their, certainly on their defense and in their offense, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And, you've got Los Angeles, the Chargers, big offensive line problems there. You've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think we can all agree we don't totally trust Jacksonville yet. There's some opportunity for one of these teams. Like, if people want to just pencil in the Chiefs are going to make it somehow, the Ravens will make it somehow. Well, Texans are 6-5. And, I come on the show often and complain about the Houston Texans offense, and I do have some positive things to say tonight, and we'll get to that in a moment. But man, that defense is so good, and I hope tonight people come away from this realizing what a special unit that is. Like, they got a lot of good things going on that side of the ball. Especially, it starts with number 51, Will Anderson Jr., 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. He almost had an interception at one point. He batted a pass down. He's a complete freak show, a complete menace. Again, if you don't spend a lot of time watching Houston Texans football, it's probably because you listen to the show and you hear me complain about how frustrated I am with their offense. And those frustrations stand, but none of them apply to the defense. The defense is incredible. And Will Anderson is the straw that beyond stirs the drink. He's the whole damn blender. Everything happens because of him. Like this season, he has really announced himself, I think, as one of those inner circle defensive players in the NFL. Period. Like Myles Garrett's going to win Defensive Player of the Year award. It's almost, to me, I feel like 90% certain that that's going to happen. I believe he has more tackles for loss, or at least as many tackles for loss right now, heading into week 12, as he did all of last season. Like, he's dominant every year. He's ratcheted it up another notch this season. The way he plays the run, he has all these sacks. you get the deal. It's probably Myles Garrett's award to lose. But if this was any other year, Will Anderson would be right there in that damn race. And maybe the favorite to win it. He was my preseason pick to win it at Football 301 when we did our award preview shows in the offseason. So I love this guy. I hope that the whole national audience got to watch him tonight and realize that that guy is one of the best players in the league. Let's move on here. So I've spent like 6 minutes now on a damn fantasy show talking about a defense here. Let's talk about the Texans offense. We always start with the winners here. And the Texans offense, I think, again, there's definitely some struggles tonight, but I think there's a few things that we can take away from this. Davis Mills gets a win here, so that's good to see. Definitely was not a perfect night from Davis Mills. 16 of 30, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. Solid again. Like Nate and I talked about this when we previewed this game. Davis Mills is a perfectly solid backup quarterback. He's just good enough that if he comes in for a quarterback, the starter, who is a little bit hot and cold, not having a perfect season, there can be a couple of weeks where there's some dumb narratives about, is there a quarterback controversy? Is there a quarterback the picture we're showing right now. Is there a quarterback controversy? No, there's no quarterback controversy, but that's what happens when a good, solid backup comes in. You felt some of the limitations with Davis Mills tonight. His receivers let him down a couple times. You know, Jaden Higgins, who we're going to talk about in a positive light here in a moment, he definitely left some plays on the field, you know, not getting the second foot in down, stuff like that. You know, not running a route all the way full when a defensive player fell down. You know, there were some plays left on the field by the rookie receiver, but okay, Davis Mills also had his misses as well. So we know what the Texans offense can look like with Mills. It can be solid, it can be functional, and some of these guys can have some interesting moments with Mills under center. Woody Marks continues his takeover of this Houston Texans backfield. 66% of the snaps, 73% of the running back rushes, 71% of the running back touches. He only had 69 yards from scrimmage. So I think people are going to come away from this matchup disappointed because it's a great spot against the Bills defense at home, and he didn't have this monster fantasy night, 7.4 fantasy points. I understand that's definitely disappointing, but he did come away here with a good evening, he's like a 44% rushing success rate as well. So there were some good, efficient moments from Woody Marks, and I thought he played well in pass protection too, which is critical for him to be that guy, because that's going to allow him to continue to get more trust. 44% of his runs went for 5+ yards in this game. He was just steadily grinding out yards. Again, good to see for Woody Marks here. That is definitely something that you want to see from him if you want to start him as a flex option, low end running back 2 rest of the way. Again, the final results weren't good, but a little bit more confidence every single week that Woody Marks is the clear-cut running back 1 of this Houston Texans offense. Let's talk about the pass catchers here in Houston. And, Nico Collins, bit of a disappointing night. I'm sure people are going to be furious about that. I kind of joked, I think on this show I joked, Nico is he's like been too hot lately. He's due for a down game, and it's going to be in this island spot, so people start complaining about Nico Collins again. That'll probably happen after he has just 7 fantasy points in this one. 3 catches on his 3 targets for 55 yards. That is one thing that's a little bit on my radar in this game. Houston was just kind of rotating all their guys in and out. If I'm looking at the fully updated numbers right now, Dalton Schultz leads the way with 24 routes, Nico Collins 21, Jaden Higgins 18, Christian Kirk 13, Xavier Hutchinson 12, Jalen Knowles 9, Cade Stover 7. It was a lot of like personnel rotation in and out here. Different formations, which I think is good. Whenever you've got these rotations, it does kind of irritate me a little bit just because you kind of like 3 guys out there to just be in a rhythm. But my point about this Texans room is that it's pretty deep, man. Like all of those guys, this is the tough part. As much as I love Jalen Knoll, right? I really, really like Jalen Knoll. And I wish he was on the field more. He's somebody in Dynasty I'm going to 100% be buying in the offseason. He's somebody that I would want to have on my team because I know he's good. I can see it. Whenever he gets opportunities, you can see that he's really, really good. Problem is, like, Christian Kirk had a nice night tonight. 6 targets, 5 catches, a touchdown in this one. Now, he had another drop. He had another couple of misses here and there. But again, Jalen Knoll was he's going to be stuck behind Christian Kirk because Kirk is showing he's good enough to be on the field. I think Xavier Hutchinson is a solid player, doesn't need to just be completely removed from the equation here. I know he had no catches, no targets in this one, but he's got like a role on this team. So again, like all these guys deserve playing time. They traded for and are still paying Christian Kirk a decent amount of money, so they can't just throw him into, into the shadow realm or whatever. Okay, so that's frustrating from a fantasy standpoint, but it does make the Texans offense interesting, and I wonder if this is a one-off, in a short week where you got the backup quarterback and you're trying to throw a lot at a good defensive mind in Sean McDermott by rotating these personnel packages, by rotating the players in and out, might not be sticky. One thing I do think is sticky though, Jaden Higgins, really nice performance in this one. Again, wasn't perfect, okay? Was not perfect in this one. He did have a team-high 9 targets. He caught 4 of them for 38 yards and a touchdown. And what stood out to me with Higgins, like I said, he missed some plays. He had some plays where he could have got the foot down in bounds. He could have run that one route out and made a really big play for his quarterback there. But his quarterback also missed him a handful of times as well. So a little bit friendly fire on both sides there. But what stood out to me for Higgins in this one, I just charted him for the rookie report, and overall the separation for Jaden Higgins is still not perfect, okay? He's still a guy that is, when he has to line up outside on the line of scrimmage, I think you still see some rough moments from him from a separation standpoint, but it's not as if he can't run any routes. There are specific routes where I think he looks really good. Talked about it a little bit with Nate on the preview show. Some of the in-breaking routes, bigger in-breakers, he looks really good, especially when you line him up in the slot or off ball. And he can be an outside receiver if he's that flanker, if he's off the line of scrimmage, or if he's in a condensed set to kind of get him that free release so that he can build up speed. Because I don't think he's very sudden. I don't think he has quick twitch athleticism necessarily at the break point of his routes. But when he can build up speed from the slot or off ball, you see that he can really rumble a little bit. I'm not quite sure what player I would compare him to, but still kind of working that out in my head a little bit. But that is something that when you're looking at these guys like Higgins, who are sub 35th percentile separators in reception perception, success rate versus man and press, the best way that those guys go on to be career successes, high volume players, if they move into the slot, if they're these off-ball flanker receivers. There's a ton of examples. I did a whole breakdown about it on my YouTube channel. You guys can go find it there. And it looks like the Texans, while he is not going to be a full-time slot player, he was about 25% snaps in the slot on this one. He got 3 of his 9 targets from the slot. He caught his touchdown from the slot. That's impressive to see. So I like the way they're getting him the football. I like the concepts that they're designing for him. It looks like after some early season when he was more of a pure boundary receiver, it looks like the Texans are figuring out more and more the ways that Jaden Higgins can win. When he is on the boundary, get him stop routes. He looks, to me, his curl route success rate was really high in the rookie report. So he's just one of these guys that I don't want to completely write off just because I do think there are some separation concerns, but I think there are ways to work around it. And so far, I think that the Texans are showing the right way to find those buttons to press. You see him in motion a lot. So really encouraging for Higgins, who's still pretty available in fantasy leagues, and he can be added. So that's good to see there. Dynasty, I still really like Jalen Noel, but redraft the rest of the way. I do think Higgins is an interesting player to add, stick on the end of your bench, see what happens. And because I like the way the Texans are using him, I never would just cross guys off. I want to see how can they find a way onto the field? How can they win? And we're seeing that, I think, with Higgins in Houston. Want to see more signs of it, of course, going forward. And it's interesting to juxtapose that, and we'll get to the Bills here. It's interesting to juxtapose that with the Keon Coleman experience. Keon Coleman, healthy scratched again in this game. And he is a guy that never got those opportunities in Buffalo. And look, I've said I'm done with Keon Coleman big slot fanfic. If you're not showing up to meetings, you're not taking your job seriously. I'm not out here being like, well, the team's really got a role cater to you. But I think the Bills just misevaluated Coleman, who was another of these sub 35th percentile success rate versus man press players. Can't just line that guy up on the boundary and have him be your X receiver. Can't do it. It's not going to work. And we've seen that with Coleman so far. I realize obviously he's had issues with professionalism and his mentality, the way they want him to attack things. That's obvious. That's been the spin. But the reality is, if he was a good high-end contributor to the offense, he's playing in this game tonight. He's playing in the game last week. Look at George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. Those guys got in some level of trouble. They're dogs. They're out there. Coleman, obviously, he's not. So it's interesting to juxtapose that. I think the Texans have shown you tonight how you can get the best out of these guys that have, and they're not perfectly comparable players. I think Higgins is a little smoother, whereas Coleman is a little more powerful. So again, not perfect comparisons, but just that reception perception, 35th percentile bucket of players. One team showing they understand that evaluation and they have that pure X receiver where they can move Higgins around. Buffalo did not have a Nico Collins on the roster, and I think misevaluated putting Coleman into that role. And it just created this cascading effect where tonight, again, we started off talking about the sack issue for Buffalo. I'm not sure that it would have mattered with the way that Houston's front seven was playing, with the way they were getting after, with the way they were harassing Josh Allen all night. But nobody's getting open on this team. You can see it on the Prime Vision broadcast with Sam. Nobody's getting open. No explosive plays beyond James Cook, 45-yard run. James Cook, sub 35% rushing success rate in this one. 35.3%. Excuse me. There was not a lot of explosive plays, even from the run game outside of that one. He was great in this game. Probably definitely the best thing about their offense, but again, it just feels problematic when you're not getting anybody open down the football field, and that's been the case for Buffalo all season long because of how they misevaluated this room. Tyrell Shavers last week, he had that big moment. Well, okay, in this game, he completely falls away here. He runs 15 routes. He doesn't get targeted. He didn't have the skill set on tape last week that showed he was going to solve the problem. He made the one big play on a scramble drill, which is good. You need that with Josh, but that's not everything. You need more than that. Khalil Shakir has the big night today, 10 targets, 8 catches, 110 yards. One of them was on the hook and ladder play from Josh Palmer. He's 1.5 air yards per target for Khalil Shakir, okay? So they just don't get anything down the football field. Gabe Davis was one of these guys who didn't get his second foot in downs when he had a deep reception. So this is where the Bills are. When they run into these really good defenses, which, as we talked about at the top, Houston is one of the elite defenses in the league, there's going to be some of these problems, and it makes me suspicious about what they can do in the postseason when Gabe Davis takes the most snaps at your outside receiver position, 60% of the routes, 55.6% for Josh Palmer, 53% for Elijah Moore. That's another thing I'm not doing anymore. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's tough to live in that world. You need your quarterback to be perfect. You need your pass protection to be perfect. And when you're going against a good defense, it's just a little bit difficult. To expect that. They get Pittsburgh next week. Mixed bag. They can definitely harass you up front, but their coverage is definitely some hit or miss. Want to continue to monitor some of their defensive changes. We'll see them against the Bears this week. Then they get the Bengals week 14. That'll be fine. They'll crush their slot receivers, tight ends, running backs. You don't even need outside receivers against the Bengals to smoke them. Patriots week 15, Browns, and then they finish with the Eagles in week 17. That's going to be a tough matchup for your fantasy football championships.